Hello there! So I wanted to do a video on Heartstopper when it came out, but then I just lost my motivation for it. Maybe I just didn't have enough negative to say. So it's a good thing season 3 of The Umbrella Academy came out. Yeah, let's just say there's a lot to talk about here, and I have, opinions. I'll start by saying that overall, I quite liked this season, and by giving a huge spoiler warning for the entire season. For a simple spoiler-free review, I would say that there are a lot of things I disliked, but I still think it was pretty alright. I had fun, and if what you like about the show is the characters, you'll like most of this season, I think. Now leave if you didn't watch it, because I'm spoiling everything. Point 1. Victor Hargreaves. This is a small one. I don't hate the fact that Vanya became Victor. I just kind of dislike the fact that I don't think they would have ever done that if Elliot Page wasn't trans himself. So it does feel a little cheap to me that they did something to the character that was not part of him before this season. At the same time, I understand that Elliot would probably rather not continue playing a woman the whole season, and it is some nice representation to have, not to mention that the wig looked really weird. It doesn't not fit his character, so I guess it's still fine. The part I really don't like about it is the way they edited it, because they're literally showing him hearing the voice of the woman he loves, saying, "You shouldn't embrace who you really are." Cut to a shot of pictures of men with short hair.
And you don't even notice the box that you're in until someone comes along and lets you out.
And like, that's what it takes. It feels a little like they're implying that cutting his hair is defining him as a guy now, because it's literally the first and only thing we're shown about him being trans. But again, since Vanya was not originally written with the knowledge she'd become Victor later on, it was difficult to do better without allocating a lot of time to it. Maybe just remove the shot where he looks at the guys with short hair. I think that would make it better. Point 2. Allison is straight up evil now, and the show refuses to acknowledge that. If you looked at the Umbrella Academy wiki at the point I finished watching it, you would see nothing about season 3 there. But I had to talk about it somewhere, or see what other people thought. So I went to Reddit, and apart from one post that somehow pretends Allison was always an awful person to this degree, every third post was about how Allison was the victim of a character assassination. And I had to agree with these people. Allison is straight up awful in this season. She goes from the pacifist of the group, the one who wants to make things right by Vanya, who wants to fight for human rights despite the threat on her life, to a person who uses grief as an excuse to cause pain to everyone else. I don't remember Five getting revenge on his siblings for being kind of okay, while he got to spend decades alone in the future. Nor do I remember Luther hating every single member of his family because he wasted I don't even remember how many years on the moon for nothing. Allison's grief is not emphasized nearly enough to justify what she does to Luther, nor what she does to Victor, and honestly I think that only insisting on that failed rumor would have worked to have her behave this way without completely obliterating the character. But you know the worst part of all this? The show doesn't even seem to think she's that bad. The family only steps in when she says the most evil shit to her brother, but besides that, no one but Victor seems to think she's way out of line. She sexually assaults her brother, who's probably the person besides Victor who cares the most about her, and later, when he tells her that was mean, she scoffs at him, and that's the end of that. She fucking kills a guy just to hurt her brother, and we're meant to accept that it wasn't somehow hugely problematic. I used to love this character, and I know she was the favorite of a bunch of other people before this season, but you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone that still loves her now. Point 3. Five never uses his powers when they'd be useful. So in this season, we never see Five go back in time ever, except for once with Lila and the defective briefcase. I think they're jumping through time because otherwise the briefcase isn't really relevant, but for some reason, despite the fact that we literally have him say out loud,
"My jumps are only accurate up to a couple minutes,"
he never uses that power when it would make sense. Klaus dies at the end, and Five is highly suspicious Reginald actually killed him, so maybe go back in time 2 minutes to make sure of what actually happened. Also, earlier, Five meets his future self on his deathbed in a paradox-proof chamber. They literally say that
The operations bunker is paradox-proof. In this room, all permutations of yourself can exist.
So like when they run out of time and need clarifications on why he tells him ominous shit, he's definitely gonna go back 3 minutes to get some clarifications, right? Oh, okay, no, never mind. I guess Chekhov's gun got Google blitzed earlier. Point 4. This season creates so many plot holes for the first season. So Hargreaves kills himself in season 1 because he wanted to make sure the Umbrellas came together to save the world, but in season 3 we learned that his only goal was to reset the universe in a way that suited him. So 1, why would he ever kill himself? No one would ever find about Hotel Oblivion, so that part of the plan wouldn't have worked. 2, why would he abandon Vanya to the side the second he figured her powers? Victor is clearly the most powerful to deal with the Guardians in season 3, so why would Hargreaves waste such an asset? 3, even without the part about how strong Victor is, he needs 7 people for the energy source or something, so if he abandons Vanya early on, before Ben even dies, he's now missing someone. Now some of those you could actually somewhat easily make excuses for, or suggest reasons that would account for those. But the way it's written, I'm not thinking that there's a reason we aren't privy to, I'm thinking the authors just don't want us to think about it. Or worse, they didn't think about it themselves. Because you can't put seemingly contradictory stuff in your story and not make people go plot hole alarm mode. There are ways to make us think we're just missing pieces of the puzzle, but this show doesn't use any of those. Point 5 is one of the biggest ones. The hand of the writer is just too in your face sometimes. I hate how the Umbrellas immediately decide that Harlan has to die to strike a deal with the Sparrows, and Victor is being told he's the one being unreasonable here. Yes, they are correct that the life of one person is not worth the lives of billions, but that's a false dichotomy. What you should be comparing is the life of one person with having a somewhat difficult conversation with the Sparrows to let it slide or to explain to them what actually happened. And them not wanting to go to Oblivion is also one of these moments. It obviously makes sense for 5. He's been told by his future self to sit this one out. I'm also kind of okay with Victor's justification. But all the others? They want to spend less than 24 hours together in peace rather than save the universe, themselves included. Every time they're like,
"You're asking us to risk our lives. I think it's only fair you give us some time to discuss it."
or
But I think some of us should stay back.
I wanted anyone to explain that it makes no sense to refuse to risk your life when you know you'll be dead less than a few hours later anyway. How does it make sense for Diego to want to protect Lila by not going? Do you think she's gonna survive if she stays? As much as you could say it's because they're not that smart, the fact that nobody actually spells it out for them really makes it feel to me like the writers wanted us to not pay attention too closely. It just feels to me like they wanted to have a dramatic 4v4 and they ended up being short of someone who would actually have a motive for staying, and they just decided Diego would be a dumbass for a second. They could have made him suspicious, they could have been trusting 5. But no, they just don't want to risk the lives they're gonna lose anyway, and not take into account that in the end, they can reset the universe in a way where they're all there at the end. And actually, now that I think about it, why was Reginald so fucking secretive the entire time? The fact he just hid his entire plan is actually bullshit for the audience's sake. Because in the end, the entire plan was better for everyone. You can't tell me that it was not okay for him to straight up explain, yeah, you have to fight the Guardians, then we need to use your life force, and then I'll be able to reset the universe exactly as we want it. He does tweak things in such a way where he's basically on top of the world at the end, sure, but the outcome is still better for everyone, and he could have definitely just let that part out of the plan. Point 6. Everything goes way too fast, yet they waste all of their time. They waste time on stuff like dance numbers and shitty karaoke, and Allison and Victor trying to make a deal with the Sparrows for the briefcase when we know 5 and Lila have it and it doesn't work. And also all that shit about helping Harlan even though he's killed unceremoniously as soon as it's over. But at the same time, they take so little time to develop shit that actually matters. Like I said before, Allison just had her entire character overhauled with the flick of a switch, and that's apparently not worth more time. The relationship between the Sparrows is paper thin, so I think dedicating more time to explaining how they view each other would be neat. This way maybe we'd feel something when they die, though they all are pretty unimportant, so you could also just really condense their parts, but pick one. You could also use that time to expand on Reginald's plan. That's really fucking confusing. Anyway, I'd like to end this video by circling back and explain why I actually still liked this season, despite all I just said. So, a small thing, there's some small homages to the comics that made me smile. They're just fun details if you've read the comics. The show has very little to do with them, but they still keep little nods to it. Hotel Oblivion in the comics is a sort of prison in another dimension or something, where Reginald trapped every villain the Umbrella Academy defeated. The Sparrow Academy, I'm not sure we exactly know who they are, but we know that people with powers and they're in touch with Grace. There's this random person in the comics named Jennifer, and they start saying this season that Ben died during the Jennifer incident, so I'm guessing maybe that's related in some way. On the more interesting note, here's an unpopular opinion. I didn't love Season 2. I don't remember hating it, but I do remember being disappointed, because to me, Season 1 was really about the characters and their relationships. The apocalypse was something in the background that in the end was actually the result of their relationships, and I thought that was pretty awesome. And so when I hear Season 2 is coming, I'm expecting to see more of that. I'm hoping we'll see them learn to be a family or something. But then Season 2 is kind of a whole different beast. It's not really a continuation of the first season, it's just them trying to fix the consequences of what happens at the very end of the first. It's mostly about the adventure and how do we get back. Like, they're separated for I don't remember how long, and the first time we see Hazel, it's like, hey, you know how my relationship with Agnes was really wholesome and nice to see? Well, yeah, she's gone now, and so am I. That's what I liked about Season 3. It's that, besides Allison's character assassination, seeing these characters be there for each other and act more like a family than ever felt very good. Seeing Lila get actually vulnerable for Diego and being a team with Five, and even that single scene in the last episode where she teams up with Victor to kill a Guardian, that's something I'm really happy we got to see. Admittedly, Allison was the character that we got to see bond with others in her family the most, so that just feels bad now, but whatever, I already complained about her. So yeah, despite everything this season, I can confidently say there's a lot I enjoyed. But that's not to say it was a perfect hit, far from it. As a side note, I'm getting the uncomfortable feeling that since Reginald reboot everyone and didn't know she was pregnant, since they made a point of hiding it, maybe he made her not pregnant anymore, since we see he did mess up with their bodies by giving them their limbs back. But maybe he forgot to reset Chekhov's gun, and I'm just imagining things. And maybe the show will think twice about leaving the implication that an old man just aborted the baby without consent after what just happened in the US. Anyway, that's it. What did you think of the show? Did you like this season? Do you completely disagree with everything I said? Leave a comment then. Bye.